at a young age, get them involved and interested, engaged. That'll help keep them in school throughout their whole school career. So that's why what you do is to be applauded.
Thank you.
Does that sound like a motion for $10,000?
So
Second on that.
Motion and second to grant the money to these young people that we've heard talking about here, and we do appreciate the leadership, Mr. Burt.
Thank you.
And if your kids are already involved in pop tabs, I know in the school system for the program that Judy and them run out there, but if they're going to be extra, we'll take them.
Well, we'll tell you what. When we start our season, we'll start that.
Start
By the
quick.
time McDonald's open up, the Little League will be there.
All right, and
All
just
right.
work with Judy about, you got your bids here and stuff, just work with her and she can handle this probably through a purchase order, and that way they can just bill us. And
That's fine, however you want to handle it. But like I said, the goal is, like again, long-term goal is a new field, but short-term for this season, we'd like to get the on the permanent fencing on the old field.
all right, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
And what line of police work are you in?
I work for the state, so I can't say anything.
Well, I was going to tell the sheriff we might be able to work for us.
I can't say that. All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Next thing on the agenda is Rick McDowell with the EPA grant, RRA Green Project. And see, Rick, I'm gonna get you out here before 7 o'clock.
Thank you. I appreciate
I assured you that today, didn't
Thank you. I gotta go to the Farm Bureau meeting, so I'll try to be extra quick. I want to give you an update on,
He's telling the truth, as Peter said.
yes, update on the ARRA and the EPA project. The first page is the requisition form that we're using with DEP. So every time we want to get some money, draw down some money, it'll be a form like this. If you look on the left-hand column with the numbers, you'll see that we've got just over $718,000. That's the total amount that's in the project. And this form is from the second request that we put in, and that was for just a little over $37,000. I think we're going to be able to request more than once a month. One of our problems is that since we're just working with a small installer, he's got to be able to make payroll. So having a whole month delay is pretty hard. So we're working with DEP to try to get that more often. So my hope is that by the end of this week, I'll have another request for another $41,000. If you look on the second page, it just sort of shows, it's a breakdown of the money that we've spent in the request that you've got there. And then the second half of that page, one of the things that the state wants us to do is they want us to track jobs, since it's the stimulus bill, which is tracking jobs. So we will be tracking both newly created jobs and sustained jobs. And for February, which was actually just the first half of February, we had 2 new jobs created and 5 sustained jobs created. So each month I'll be doing both a monthly summary and then a cumulative summary of that.
This Kevin's, is that the sign?
That's the sign. So that's the ARRA project. Where we are with that, we've started the electrical work. We're doing electrical upgrades, and we've started putting systems in at 3 sites. None of those are totally done yet, but we've got, as the weather gets a little better, we can get in there and do some digging. We've got 3 systems that are where we have tanks and the feed modules. The last 2 things are some more pieces of the final report that's going to go in with the EPA project. And even though we finished that at the end of last month, February 28th, we can't draw down any more money. We're finished in that respect. We've still got some time to finalize the reports. And the first thing is we thought it might be helpful, because the report is going to be so long, to sort of highlight some of the lessons learned from the project. And a couple of them that I think are pretty important. One is something we've talked about before, that we found that when we're putting in these, if we have places where we have several homes in a row that have these new systems in it, we found that the bacterial count in the creeks is lower than it is other places in the watershed. So I think we've been able to show definitely that by putting these systems in, we're cleaning up our creeks and streams. So that's a real important lesson that I think other communities can learn from. I think another thing that's real important is that the commission has really, as we move through this project, constantly given decision-making to the community. A lot of places don't necessarily do that. I think it's both help the project and also help the community to let the local people be decision makers on the project. So I think that's another really important lesson learned. We were able to do a lot of trainings for local installers and sanitarians. We found when we started the project that people really didn't know very much about these alternative units. And so by doing these trainings, we've now got people statewide who understand them better and are going to be more willing to use them. That's been a real important thing. The fact that we've got local county government involved and willing to work with local people, I think, is really important. On the challenging side, there's still some research questions that have come up from the project that we don't have answers to. These are things that have been raised in commission meetings. One is we don't really understand how mineral content in people's wells impact these systems. We think they might, but we're not sure, and there hasn't been any research about it. And we think, you know, if you're going to continue to put these in rural areas, you've got to answer that question. Another question we don't know is how, if somebody's taking some really strong antibiotics or if they're undergoing chemotherapy, how does that impact their system? Because if you got a municipal system, all that's sort of diluted, but when it's just my house that all that stuff's going into my septic system, it can have a big impact on it. And we think it may even make these systems shut down and not work right. While we've had some money to actually monitor where we have direct discharge to see what's happening with that, not all projects are going to have that. And so I think one of the challenges is how can you find funds to monitor these direct discharge systems to see if they're working or not. We also uncovered the fact that we have found that some of these pump tanks and septic tanks leak, the new ones. I think it's going to be important for the state to figure out how you can prevent that from happening on site. I don't know how that's going to work, but those are some big research projects that would be great for people to find out. Another thing that we thought was real important is that in West Virginia, there are no laws that require installers to get continuing education. So I could get my installer's license, say, in 1999, and as new systems come on, I don't have to be trained in those. So number one, I might end up putting these things in, and I might not really know what I'm doing, and so I'm not putting them in right. These systems are very temperamental, so you got to know what you're doing. And number two, I think that a lot of times if people haven't had any training, they're really hesitant to even try to put this stuff in. So one of the things we talked about when we did our Flex E conference, and that we're going to continue to push, is that somehow the state's got to require continuing ed for people who are putting these systems in.
And some way we gotta make sure they're affordable.
Well, and that's the last thing.
That's
The last thing on page 3 is, in the final analysis, I'm not sure if these systems are really the best solution for rural, low-income communities, because they're so expensive, they're obviously real temperamental,